community, the Swedish government, civil society and research organizations, and other guests. On behalf of SIPRI and the Romanian Embassy, a warm welcome to this, as we see, an important event titled Threats and Opportunities in the Black Sea Region. My name is Stefan Löfven, and I'm the chairperson of the SIPRI Governing Board. I guess most of you are familiar with SIPRI and the work that we are doing, which aims to contribute to improved prospects for disarmament, peace and security, and development by providing not least reliable facts and information, and we engage a wide variety of stakeholders on issues ranging from hard security, traditional security, to the long-term causes of conflict, food insecurity, climate change, as well as new challenges related to security dimensions of artificial intelligence and also advances in cyber technology. Our work also aims to contribute to a global conversation on the challenges that we have at hand, and I think this meeting today is a very good example of just that. Now, to say that we find ourselves in a challenging times is perhaps an understatement. The world is under pressure, we know that, all of us. Geopolitical tensions is at its highest in many years, in a long time. The Russian war in Ukraine has undermined the European security order, as well as the rules-based international order, and brought insecurity to Europe, not seen actually since the Cold War. The threat of using nuclear weapons has again become real. The Ukraine war has also led to spikes in energy prices, in food insecurity, also affecting other regions in the world where hunger and soaring food prices are adding to already existing social tensions. Today, we will focus on our attention on the Black Sea region, a region of considerable importance to Europe, and a region obviously very much affected by the Russian war in Ukraine. Now, there are indeed numerous threats, as the title of our event signals, but also opportunities that we need to look to, of which we will shortly learn more from a Romanian perspective. In a very short moment, we will listen to the Prime Minister Ciuca's remarks. This part, that part, first part now of our meeting will be covered by Romanian media present here in the room. After the Prime Minister has delivered his reflections, the media will leave and the meeting will be a closed meeting. So we will then have approximately 30 minutes private session with questions and comments from the audience under NB, under the Chatham House rules. And at 16 sharp, the Prime Minister will leave for another commitment, and we will by then conclude our meeting. Now, Prime Minister, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you, Excellency Mr. Nicolae-Ionel Ciucă. You have served as Prime Minister since December 2021. Prior to that, you served as Minister of National Defense between 2019 and 2021, preceded by a distinguished military career from which you retired in 2019, having served in various functions, most recently as Chief of Defense Staff within the Romanian Armed Forces. We look forward to hear your perspectives, Excellency. You have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And let me starting by apologizing, keeping you busy this afternoon, Friday afternoon. So very sorry for that. It is a privilege for me to be here invited by SIPRI, one of the world's most prominent institutions specialized in the peace and security studies. I am using each year the findings of SIPRI research into conflict, armaments, arms control, and disarmament. Therefore, it is with great joy and humbleness that I accepted to deliver here a speech on the topic Threats and Opportunities in the Black Sea Area. The wider Black Sea region, as we call it, is a strategic concept that includes the sea and the riparian states, the Republic of Moldova and the Caucasus, interdependent in terms of security and reunited in a security conundrum. It is a region of strategic importance for Romania, granting us the exit to the high seas and international trade, and we are happy that it's become, since the Madrid summit and the new strategic concept, a region of strategic importance for NATO as well. Moreover, the US State Department, as well as the Congress, are preparing the American Black Sea Strategy that we definitely salute and welcome. That will be a very important step for the Black Sea security. Ladies and gentlemen, today's intervention will be structured on 5 points, aiming at giving you my perspective on the strategic importance of the Black Sea, the impact of the Russian full-scale war against Ukraine, threats and instruments to undermine the security of the wider Black Sea region and of the world, the role of the EU and NATO in the region, and finally, stabilization and reconstruction. The first point, the Black Sea region is strategically important. And here are my arguments. The wider Black Sea region has always been a geopolitical border or a bridge between Europe, Middle East, and Asia, comprised of different peoples, cultures, and, of course, different political interests. The threats to the region came always from the differences and from the wars and rivalries developed in the region. But the wider Black Sea region also represents an opportunity when it is up to building bridges, trade, respect, and mutual understanding. It is also the region someone will choose for testing, confidence building, cooperation, and forging post-conflict reconciliation, when the due time will come for the positive perspective of peace. In that very region, Russia invented and backed several protracted conflicts, the frozen conflicts, transformed after 2008 with the 5 days Russian-Georgian war into motives for military interference. Then Russia has used multiple means of soft influence, but also below the radar aggression of hybrid nature, like political baking dominance of the public space of those countries' informational warfare. It did use extensively influence and constraints towards neighbors. And it uses to weaponize energy, especially gas, towards all its neighbors and towards the EU countries. The real end game was to preserve influence, stabilize the fall of the Soviet Union, waiting for better times to rebuild the empire, prevent real independence of those countries blocking their evolutions towards democracy, stability, their aspiration for the EU and NATO integration, for liberty and prosperity of their people. Moreover, the alternative integration institutions proposed by Russia, be it CIS, the Eurasian Union, the Common Economic Space, the CSTO, were not attractive to those countries because of the asymmetric format that preserved Russia's dominance in the region. Russia has accepted formally at the beginning of 90s the path towards democracy and market economy, individual rights, free speech and competition, then moved towards a different direction with the so-called sovereign democracy, centralized control of the economy, and the big state companies, especially in energy, by the Siloviki on behalf of the regime. Moreover, it assumed unilaterally to defend Russian speakers and compatriots in the post-Soviet space, an instrument to intervene in all its neighbors' policies. All targeted for sure the wider Black Sea region directly. Russia played the geopolitical game the entire time, hoping to rebuild the former Soviet empire in a different form. It has been proven by the twisted historical speeches of President Putin since the annexation of Crimea and military aggression in the eastern region of Ukraine in 2014, and especially in 2021, before launching the war. The strategic importance of the Black Sea can no longer be ignored in the context of the war in Ukraine. And let us not forget, when there is a perceived vacuum of attention, somebody will try to take advantage. My second point is the influence on security related to the full-scale war in Ukraine on the wider Black Sea region. Russia brought back the issue of war and peace in Europe in our direct neighborhood. A full-scale war of aggression has been launched in Ukraine, beginning with the Blitzkrieg, rapidly transformed by the brave determination of Ukraine to defend its territory, citizens, and independence, in a war of attrition, moving to a long war, if not, as President Putin already defined it, a forever war with the West, the liberal democracies, the US, Europe, and NATO. The Russian war of aggression in Ukraine is the most tragic and violent in the wider Black Sea region, and the priority now is our capacity of responding to Russian war of aggression in Ukraine. Russia must not win. Ukraine must preserve its independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. And Russia should pay for the war, for the destruction of Ukraine, for the crimes, and we should ensure that the war never returns as an instrument to solve ambitions, internal issues, and foreign political aspirations. Revisionism, neo-imperialism, and lack of respect for the rules-based order are not acceptable in the mid of the 21st century. The UN Charter principles, as well as those of the Paris Charter and the Helsinki Final Act, must prevail. Moreover, basing the full-scale attack on defending the Russian speakers and compatriots is a direct threat to all the Russian neighbors. This motivation for forging a war welcomes instability and harms all avenues of cooperation, development, and social cohesion. The precedent of Ukraine and the Russian interference in the public space of all those independent states makes everyone in the post-Soviet space feel that it could be next. In the military field, I can say, building on my military background, we need to support Ukrainians' effort to defend itself in front of an unprovoked, illegal, and illegitimate war. We will support Ukraine with all it needs in order to achieve their objective of freeing their country. From our side, we also need to ensure the strong coherence of NATO's eastern flank, from the Baltic to the Black Sea, now from Grand North to the Black Sea, is more than a correct strategic choice. It's a vital course of action. The 21st Madrid Summit's decisions reinforced the forward presence in the southern part of the eastern flank and ensured the coherence of the entire posture. Moreover, it defined the Black Sea region as a region of strategic importance for NATO. In the view of the upcoming summit in Vilnius, we need a coherent, consolidated, and united NATO's defense and deterrence posture on the entire eastern flank, with an integrated forward presence for the entire eastern flank on 300-degree approach across the land, air, maritime, space, and cyber domains. The reinforced and robust allied presence in the Black Sea region, while constant awareness and monitoring of all the challenges in the area, should be complementary. We also need to defend the freedom of navigation. The abuse of the military exercises and consecutive blockage for months in a row, if not for years, of important areas of the Black Sea for navigation or overflight is not acceptable, as the interventions in the skies of the international waters. It harms littoral countries, the trade, the food security, and the economy of the whole wider Black Sea region. Now, we need to analyze the threats and instruments to undermine the security of the wider Black Sea region and of the world. In our region, is not only a matter of full-scale war. Actually, the situation in the wider Black Sea region has never been, after the collapse of communism, entirely peaceful because of unfinished businesses turned into protracted conflicts. When the time comes, we must not waste the opportunity to address all the security issues in the region. This is why peace in this part of the world means lasting solutions to all problems, protracted conflicts included. Hence the need to avoid any more unfinished businesses and instruments to constrain, interfere, or launch a military operation in our region. We cannot forget here the full action and presence of all the instruments of the hybrid warfare in the region. Trade, energy dependence, Russian minority and dominance of the former symbolism of the empire are there as the influences through elite representatives linked to Moscow, in a way undermining the independence and free choice of solutions of those independent states. Informational warfare was present at all moments through Russian outlets, propaganda, active measures, while the psychological operations are more current in these days of war. In the field of food security, the blockage of the freedom of navigation came with severe limitations on grain exports through the Black Sea that have caused major distortions in food prices across the world, most disturbingly in countries least able to deal with them, especially in Africa and the Middle East. In this context, the EU Solidarity Lanes initiative and the extension of the UN's Black Sea Grain Initiative are all the more important. To note that over 50% of these exports have been shipped through the Black Sea in the last months. Since the beginning of the invasion in Ukraine, the Romanian port of Constanța, the largest at the Black Sea, has been the main gateway for the Ukrainian grain shipments to the outside world, and overall more than 40 million tons of Ukrainian grains and other agricultural products have transited Romania. Take also the energy and connectivity sectors. Have a look at the pipelines and cables already existing in the region or potentially connecting its actors. Look at the transport links. The area is at the intersection of two major corridors, the Black Sea, Caspian Sea Strategic Corridor and the North Baltic Aegean Sea Corridor. Seen in that perspective, one can truly grasp the attention on what initiatives such as the Belt and Road pay to the region. The military mobility on the Eastern Front, as well as the Three Seas Initiative infrastructure projects, will grant a higher level of resilience and security. When it comes to geostrategy, just as in other instances, it takes two to tango. So if a region is strategically important for one actor, as it proved to be for Russia, the others cannot afford to overlook it. A fourth fundamental idea is that without NATO and the EU, there can be no lasting values-based peace. In a way, this may be a superfluous thing to say since they are already here through member or aspirant countries. What I think is that their current engagement in the region lacks a more systematic nature. We see the US starting work on the Black Sea strategy. NATO is looking more attentively at the region. The EU already has some instruments deployed, such as the Black Sea Synergy. Nevertheless, I would argue that there is room for a much more adapted strategy, more determined and strategic approach as current challenges call for. History, including the very recent one, shows that a truly global identity for the Euro-Atlantic community of values and security cannot be built in the absence of a strong and stable neighborhood. The possible avenues for Western actions in solving regional challenges can be seen as a two-standard process. Firstly, making sure that Ukraine wins the war. Secondly, reconstructing the region and integrating those with European and Euro-Atlantic vocation into the EU and NATO, while at the same time reviving the security arrangements built around OSCE. Let me clearly stress that the European and Euro-Atlantic perspective of the Eastern partners, according of course to their national interest, is the only sound option for long-term peace, stability and prosperity on the continent, as it should happen to the Western Balkans. Last year, historic and visionary decisions to open accession process with Eastern partners by granting candidate status for EU membership to Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova, and recognizing the European perspective of Georgia, enhance EU's investment in the democratic development and stability in the region. We must support them advance on this path as part of a long-term European vision of development, stability, and security. At the same time, the launch of accession negotiations between the EU and Albania, and respectively the Republic of North Macedonia, on 19 July 2022, and granting the candidate status to Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's also a recognition of the Western Balkans' strategic importance for the security and development of entire Europe. My fifth point concerns stabilizations and reconstruction. There we have two strategic issues: address protracted conflicts and ensure the efficacy of security arrangements in Europe, and support internal reform in countries aspiring to EU and NATO, ensuring their adherence to democratic values and helping develop the region by means of sustainable and transparent connectivity. In one word, consolidate resilience across the region. Ensuring the efficacy of security arrangements with the goal of solving conflicts requires a fresh look at the security arrangements we now have in place. The OSCE and the arrangements built around it remain valid, but we should reinforce their functional mechanisms. We need to make sure that in no future instance one member can proceed to undermine the stability on the continent and the security of war. Then we must look to our strategic resilience in the Black Sea region. On one hand, we should focus on the soft resilience of our values, not only making sure that democratic principles are put into practice, but also securing that they are safe from manipulation and subversion. An unavoidable requirement for the success of such an endeavor is having digitally literate and information discerning population. As speaking of resilience, let me say a word here on the Republic of Moldova, which faces these days a real assault on democracy and stability at the hands of Moscow. We need to support our neighbors through this ordeal. Here I will let you know that we have very good discussion today with the Prime Minister of Sweden, and we do really discuss on detail what we can do better in support of Ukraine and Republic of Moldova. So we will discuss later on more details in this regard. On the other hand, we need to tackle the hard resilience aspects: energy, transport, digital infrastructure. At all times, involvement of the private sector is a key element for successful connectivity policies. Part of this issue is Ukrainians' reconstruction. Given the magnitude of the destruction, it will be the work of a generation. The wise thing to do is not to act in isolation, but as part of a wider regional approach, taking into account similar needs of other states, such as the Republic of Moldova, a fellow EU candidate of Ukraine. Romania is willing to support and participate in the process too. Since many instruments can be utilized, the watchword should be coherence and non-duplication of efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I managed to offer you an idea of the complexity of challenges and opportunities in the Black Sea region. And before closing, summarizing some of the above, I want to underscore that in order to approach these challenges and potentiate the opportunities in the Black Sea region, few factors are paramount to be ensured. A strong transatlantic partnership, which is the cornerstone of the Euro-Atlantic security, as well as a robust US involvement, should be ensured. At the same time, close and complementary cooperation between NATO and the EU in answering to the common challenges both organizations face in the Black Sea area is also an important condition to facilitate the potential of the Black Sea region. Not least, promoting respect for international law and regional cooperation based on trust and good neighborly relations is key to facilitate all these processes and to ensure the security, stability, and prosperity in the Black Sea region. I do really want to, again, apologize for keeping you so long, and I do really want to thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister, you do not have to apologize. That was a very interesting speech. Thank you so much for those remarks, pertinent and thought-provoking remarks. I think those are very important, and I'm sure there will be many questions from the floor. But before we take them, we will allow for the media now to leave the room.
Mr. President, here I am to answer.
Yes.